Good afternoon. My name is Cassandra Franklin, and this is my training/informative speech for COM 3325. I want to thank y'all in advance for y'all attendance, and I hope that you will get something today out of this presentation. Now, first of all, I just want to say that my sister, she recently gave birth to a baby boy. And of course, we were very, very excited because it's a new addition to the family. But our happiness is certainly not unique because according to the National Center for Health Statistics, more than 4 million babies are born in the U.S. each year. As I look into the audience, I see some who may plan on becoming one of the millions who will have children in the next few years. Now, new parents and those considering becoming parents have something in common. They must eventually decide how they want to educate their offspring. Will they rely on public schools or will they lean towards private school? Might they opt to instead homeschool? Now, it's obvious that it's several different avenues that new parents can decide to pursue, but this decision is not one that can be made lightly because after all, the quality of the education that a child receives can shape his future. So to make an informed choice on this all-important issue requires being knowledgeable about all the schooling options. Now, many of you are probably familiar with the process of public schooling, but you're maybe less familiar with the details of homeschooling. So during this presentation, we're going to go over some facts about homeschooling and the steps that one must take if he wishes to homeschool his child. Now, first, I want to say that the purpose of this speech is not to persuade you towards one type of schooling, nor is it to deter you from another type. Instead, this speech is simply to inform. That's what it is, an informative speech after all. And I hope that after you leave here today, you'll just be more enlightened about an alternative form of schooling. And I also want to mention that the Texas Education Agency, the Texas Education Code, the Texas Homeschool Coalition, and localhomeschool.com all served as references for the information contained within this speech. So getting back to the process of homeschooling, the first step that any would-be homeschoolers must do is to decide whether homeschooling is a good fit for their family. And it's many things that you have to consider, but in the interest of time, we can't obviously go over everything right now. But one important thing that I thought that I would bring out is that a family has to consider the possible financial impact of homeschooling. Now, according to the U.S. Census Bureau, by 1998, families with both parents employed had become a majority. Still, when a family homeschools, one parent may decide to quit or reduce the number of hours worked so as to teach the child. This could result in a reduced income level, which could present a challenge. And you might think, well, could one just work from home if they wanted to do that, the family? Well, that could be a possibility, but working from home, of course, is not a viable option for everyone. And also, parents who homeschool will have to assume responsibility for things that normally fall upon the school, such as lesson planning or taking the kid out for field trips. This increased responsibility requires commitment, organization, and of course, creative planning. And homeschooling parents also have to realize that they're going to be spending more time with their kids. Now, some people say, what's wrong with that? They should relish the thought of that. But some people just don't. And it's not that they don't love their kids, it's just that they love to see their kids getting on the school bus in the morning too, because they like that escape. They like the mommy time or the daddy time that they can get when they send the kids off for the teacher to have to deal with them. And finally, families of homeschoolers also have to consider how well they can brush off the negative reactions of others. Now, I was homeschooled, and I know from experience that a lot of people, including well-meaning relatives, might not be happy with the family's decision to homeschool the children. And these unhappy people become very, very vocal with their opinions. So this is something that the homeschooling family has to prepare for. They kind of have to have thick skin, so to speak. Now, let's say that a family has carefully weighed the options and they choose to homeschool. Well, what next? The parents should now familiarize themselves with the homeschooling laws in their state because obviously no one really wants to run afoul of the law. Because we reside in Texas, I thought it would be fitting to briefly mention some of this state's requirements. The homeschools in Texas are considered private schools and are not regulated by the state. Texas doesn't regulate the number of hours per day or days per year that a child must be homeschooled. Homeschool children are also not subject to state-mandated tests, and moreover, the parents who are homeschooling the children don't have to have a teaching certificate or even a college degree. So you might say, wow, they get off pretty easy. What is required? Well, they do have to have a curriculum that includes teaching mathematics, grammar, reading, spelling, and a study of good citizenship, which is usually just taken to mean civics. And also, this curriculum must be pursued in a bona fide, or in other words, a manner that's non-bogus. Now, speaking of curriculum, obtaining one would be the next logical step for those who have decided to homeschool. This choice could be particularly overwhelming to some, as there are many different types of curriculum available. So, which one should a family choose? Well, ultimately, I can't stand here and say that you should pick this one and not this one, because families are different, and what works for one might not work for another. Each family has different goals and values. For example, some homeschoolers desire a religious element to be included in their children's studies, but contrary to a common stereotype, everybody who's homeschooling is not doing it for a religious reason. According to a 2003 survey conducted by the National Center for Education Statistics, 16% of homeschool students have parents who said dissatisfaction with the academic instruction available at other schools was their primary reason for homeschooling. So these parents, they just might want the lesson plan to be strictly secular. And also, in picking the curriculum, the parents have to consider that each child has different learning interests and a different learning style. And even the parents themselves, they might have their own preferred way of teaching. So this also can be considered when deciding upon a curriculum. Now, once parents have done all their research, and as you can see, it's a lot to think about, and they have considered all the variables, then they might decide to purchase a fully packaged curriculum. If so, they can purchase a curriculum online, through used curriculum sales, or through a homeschool bookstore. They might go to the Texas Homeschools Coalition website to see a listing of curriculum and resource providers. Alternatively, the parents may decide that they want to design their own curriculum instead of purchasing one, and that's well within their right to do in the state of Texas. They could go to the local library, organizations with educational outreach, and even a museum to develop the curriculum. They also might want to choose to consult the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills curriculum as a guide to making up their own, which is available on the Texas Education Agency website. So the point is that parents can adopt whatever curriculum is necessary as long as it contains the tenets that we mentioned earlier in the steps. Now, the next action is necessary only if your child is enrolled in public school. Although a parent is not legally required to register with the school district or obtain their consent to homeschool, the parent should withdraw the child from school, if nothing else but for common courtesy. This can be accomplished by writing school officials a letter informing them that the child is being withdrawn. And the parents might want to send this letter certified so they can make sure that the letter was received by school officials. Now, according to the Texas Education Agency's Commissioner's Homeschool Policy letter, this act will be sufficient for withdrawal. The parents don't have to personally go up to the school, nor do they have to show a curriculum to the school district. Now, the next step that the parents might want to do, but it's not necessary but advantageous, is to join a support group. This can be really beneficial for newbies to homeschooling because being involved with other homeschoolers who are more experienced can provide a family with support. The novice homeschoolers will have someone to ask questions of and somebody just to be there to vent to, which we all need at times. Plus, the homeschooler will have new associations. And parents shouldn't worry that these types of groups are rare. In fact, they are all over the country, which is expected since Tatiana Moore in a 2010 Time magazine article estimates that there are 2 million children being homeschooled in the United States. All the parent has to do is to consult a website like localhomeschool.com to find one of these support groups. So this is basically the steps that one ought to take to homeschool his child. Just to do kind of a quick review, because I did do a lot of talking, just to hit on the high points, and because repetition is the mother of retention, I just want to mention the steps again. The first thing you might want to do is to weigh your options, because let's face it, it's not going to work for everybody, and You're not wrong if you decide to. Of course, you're not wrong if you decide not to. Number 2, you need to familiarize yourself with the laws in your state. 3, go about choosing your curriculum. 4, send a certified letter of withdrawal. And 5, join a support group. So I want to thank you again for being here for this presentation. I hope that you found something that new, you learned something new, or that you just found something interesting today. So again, thank you for your time.